And welcome everybody to this session. The theme is how to accelerate the VR/AR ecosystem in Portugal. I am the founder and editor-in-chief of Sapotec and Casa dos Bits. Sapotec is one of the main websites in Portugal about technology, and this year we are celebrating 20 years online, which is a huge achievement. So I have all this thing to remember me and everybody. I have with me four great speakers and the great pleasure to be trying to moderate this conversation. Everybody has a lot of experience and knowledge in AR, VR, IT, telecom, mixed reality, and we want to tap a little bit on what is the potential of VR/AR in Portugal and how can we continue to develop the ecosystem. The ecosystem, as I've just known from Luis, there are 100 companies working on VR/AR in Portugal. And I think there is a huge potential to grow. There's a lot of talent in Portugal and new opportunities to explore in Portugal locally and also in international projects. So to begin, I will pass the stage to each one of the speakers and I will ask them to present themselves, give a little background, also what companies are doing so that we present ourselves and then go to the tough questions that I have for you. I will start with alphabetic order with António Câmara from Romney. Then I will pass the stage to Tiago Loureiro from Verara, Portugal, Miguel Marques Paulo from Siemens, and João Ricardo Moreira from Nós Telecom. So please, António, if you want to start, please.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I started in virtual reality in 1992. I'm a really old man. We started in augmented reality in 1999, and I'm actually still a professor at university, but I'm with three companies right now in VR and AR space. The oldest one is, of course, WideGames. Now it's called WideX. The headquarters are in Vancouver. We develop a platform for VR called Arcade. Our top clients are NBA, Disney, and Coca-Cola. Romney is developing a great AR platform. It's still a stealth company, although we work with Geroni Martins and others. And today is a special day because we decided to relive WideDreams Entertainment, which was a gaming company. And today we launch a product that we had an idea for in 2004. It's called Global Stadium with Sport TV. It's about in 15 minutes, people will be able to participate from home. So it's sort of an augmented reality using sound in the stadium. So basically, I'm really still very active on the companies and also at university with PhD and master students.
Great, António, thank you so much. Tiago, can you present yourself and Verara, Portugal?
Yes, of course. So my name is Tiago Loureiro, and with Luis and Anésio, we are the faces behind the VR/AR Association, the Portuguese chapter. So in the VR/AR Association, what we try to do is to foster a network relationship between VR and AR professionals, both here in Portugal and from all over the world to Portugal. I'm also a technical director for the Lisbon office of Lockwood Publishing. That is the company behind the social platform Avakin Live. And before that, I was working on ASIC Games. It's the Photon, which is the world's #1 multiplayer engine. And I've been working on the games industry for, I don't know, the past 15 years or so. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Miguel Marques Paulo from Siemens. Do you want to present yourself too?
Sure. So I don't have those big credentials in terms of years of spending development. So I've been with Siemens for the past 6 years. And on the latest 2, I've been trying to push the topic of AR and VR within the company on a global level. So I'm a senior strategy manager working for Siemens for the IT department, the corporate IT. And so AR and VR have been my, I would say, most focused topic for these last 2 years, even though I've been working in innovation and IT infrastructure for the past years, running very large-scale projects. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. João Ricardo Moreira from Nós Telecom. Nós Telecom is one of the sponsors of the VR/AR Global Summit. And of course, I think everyone knows Nós Telecom, so please do present yourself and what is the interest of Nós Telecom in this area.
Yeah, at least in Portugal, Nós will be known, but for the ones that are watching us from the outside, I would say that Nós is one of the biggest telco players. So in that sense, it's it's pretty much said. I'm in charge of the corporate segments unit, so I'm pretty much on the digital transformation business, if you want. So trying to address the new ways brands and companies interact with their customers. So pursuing somehow the no interface or the direct interaction with no major layers in between is something that we are looking for. Actually, the 5G that I believe we might talk about is one of the major drivers who believe the AR VR will be, and not saying a commodity, but at least much more generalized in the sense that we are not dependent anymore on high bandwidth and high resilience on fixed spots. We are able to deliver the connectivity we are used to at home or in the office pretty much everywhere. And I believe that will be a trigger for a major change and a major incorporation of VR, AR in the business models.
Yeah, everyone is expecting, or we are waiting for 5G to come and to change a lot of things. And of course, this area of VR, AR is one of the most interesting cases that we've probably see having a huge development on this. Well, as we've seen, if we sum all the experience from everyone, we should have I don't know, 100 years of experience in AR, VR, but VR and AR is quite, as a lot of the years been developed, but the last years will have been the most interesting in technology, and also with combining hardware and technology and the availability of connection to support the new applications. I will start with Antonio, that has mentioned a lot of projects, to ask him, how do you think that, how mature is the Portuguese market regarding to AR, VR? You've been in the market with several companies, several projects in Portugal and internationally. Do you think that the market is mature now, or are you expecting to see a huge development in the next years?
Well, I think Portugal is always a good place to start pilot projects. It's not a good place to scale them. Right now, it's very strange, but I really think that there are very few people that really understand the revolution that is coming in the next decade. Everything will change. I don't think people realize that. And I think everyone points towards the Apple launch of AR glasses as a turning point. And I think it will happen. It's a complete change. So I think in Portugal, I think AR and VR is still seen very much like 10 years ago. I mean, they don't realize that everyone talks about the digital transformation, but the digital transformation they are talking about is really pathetic compared to the digital transformation that we are going to see in the next 10 years. You know, and we hope to see it in about 3-4 months. I mean, it's going totally it's going to be a drastic change. And the drastic change will happen because right now all the web developments are still in the data world. The web as it is as a literary route, even the algorithm from Google, and we live in the real world. And the crucial step is going to be to bridge the data and the real world. And that is going to be through augmented reality in the front end and AI in the back end. And that, as I said, it will change everything. And I don't think in Portugal, the institutions realize the unbelievable potential the country has. I mean, we have world-class talent. We can compete with anyone. Most of the seminal patents in AR were done at Y-Dreams. We have, at Y-Dreams, we trained about 100 people and that are now dispersed in many companies. And there are several other centers in Portugal. I really think the country itself, the government itself, the major companies didn't realize that they should bet on a very different digital transformation that they are undertaking, and they should be bold. This is the time for boldness, and I really think we have everything to be a leader worldwide, and especially in Europe, because most of the AR companies that were our rivals at Y-Dreams 10 years ago were bought by the Americans or went bankrupt. And here we are in this corner of the earth, still living and be able to compete. So we can compete with anyone right now.
Right. Miguel, as you are inside the very big companies, international company like Siemens, how do you see the market in Portugal, and how do you compare with other markets in Europe? Do you see that there is a potential for Portugal to lead this area?
So firstly, perhaps doing just a small intro about Siemens, because even though it's quite a large company, I think a lot of people still think about cell phones and fridges. Actually, our operations is spread globally. We have around 365,000 employees, more or less, in many offices, and the path has been so Siemens has been very connected with the digital twins and the modeling and building of the digital assets so that they can then be implemented in the real world, let's put it this way. So what I have seen is that comparing with other international hubs, like Antonio mentioned, in the US, for example, I mean, it's very hard for us to be able to compete with them in terms of scalable of building of products. I have to also say that belonging to a German company, so I'm getting quite a lot of inputs from now and then from the German market. I mean, we even had the VRADA German chapter conference just a few minutes before ours. And in Europe, this is not moving as fast as I would expect. So we see in London, for example, in the UK, I'm not yet able to measure the impacts that Brexit will have, but at least in the UK, we see a lot of content makers and content creators, and also the ability to scale some type of solutions. For example, some quite large companies, they have their headquarters over there in terms of EMEA expansion. And also in Japan and Korea, I mean, even yesterday there was a presentation, 2 days ago from KT, a very large telecom, and they showed, I mean, the scenarios in Korea. We're still talking about 5G auctions, and they already implemented it 1 year ago. So we're, let's just say that they are quite on the front run when it comes to these scenarios. But what I can say is, in regards to the industry segment, we're seeing that there is a major push, not only coming to the most obvious segment, which is like the field service approach, but we're also seeing some parts coming to collaboration between coworkers. So when we look into major multinational companies, this can be a huge market. So, I mean, as I said in the beginning, just on Siemens side, we're 365,000 people. So if you imagine white collar workers, I mean, give it or take, you can consider 150,000 people, perhaps even more. So imagine all these people in a future, near future, hopefully working with solutions like spatial, for example, which we try to incubate very strongly inside in IT. Just doing Scrum meetings, just iterating, building projects, software projects together in a fully AR and also, by the way, VR, because that's also an option way. So this is the near short-term future that we're trying to very boldly achieve in the company.
Being bold is a very good point. How do you think, Tiago, the Portuguese companies, and I've mentioned that it's around 100 companies listed in Verara Association working on AR and VR in Portugal. Do you think that they are being bold? And the clients in Portugal, because there is the other part of the scheme. You have to have the development, and then you have to have the clients. Are they also bold or not?
Well, I think everyone who starts a company in a tech area that we don't have any idea what we're doing is got to be bold, right? So I usually compare these areas to the PC in the 80s. I mean, no one was actually knowing where the market was leading. IBM thought that it was crazy, the idea of everyone having a household computer. And now look where we are. We are in an area where we think we know the next couple of steps, but then we don't know anything else. We have a huge fog ahead of us. And those of us who are brave enough, I think it's brave, it's better than bold, who are willing to take the chance and do that, they deserve our attention. So a lot of companies, I know a lot of companies in Portugal who have been working for a long time in this area. Antonio is one of the front runners. There's a lot of companies, but we need to think that this is a global market. We don't need to keep the idea that the fact that we're in Portugal means that we have to sell to Portugal. No, that's a completely wrong idea. I was working for a company, and I was working on an enterprise VR area. And well, I don't know, we did a few contacts here, but our markets were mostly abroad. And I know a lot of companies who are working from AR to VR that even though they operate in Portugal, they're just looking at this whole broader market that it's the world, because you need to look one step ahead, I think, and see that where's your demography, where's your core audience, who's your client, and how do you get there? Because nowadays, if you know what you're talking about, being in anywhere like in Europe or in US or anywhere else, I mean, if you have a good internet and you have good talents and you know what you're talking about, then people will listen to you. So when you go to events and they start talking about what you do, and better still, start showing them what you do. So I think that's the best business card you can have, is actually showing what you do and doing stuff. Because like Antonio said, scaling in Portugal in this area, it's really difficult because we are very small in terms of demography. So the best way for us to do is scale for a bigger market, whether it's the US or Latin America or I don't know, Russia. You need to scale to one of these countries if you want to become bigger. If you think about, usually people don't have this idea, but banks. Let's consider a big bank in Portugal. I'm not going to refer names, but a big bank with a banking app has what, 20, 40, 100,000 concurrent users. In video games, we deal with 400,000 concurrent users at big time in a few games. We deal with probably 400,000 terabytes of information being passed along on a given instance. I mean, we talk about things that we measure the speed of light as one of our greatest hindrances. So you need to think ahead, and you need to know where you are. And I think being in Portugal, it's a good place to be. to start a new company. I mean, my current company decided that Portugal would be a great place, and we had no issues in finding great talent and attracting talent here. So I don't think that's a big issue.
Right. Of course, Tiago, of course, you don't have to think only about the local companies, but it's also interesting for us to know if the talent is here and the companies developing the solutions are here, and also to know if the Portuguese companies are looking at this kind of solutions to integrate in their solutions or their IT or their services and projects, of course.
And they are. Well, I remember on my other company, I used to work, was the managing director of Collide, and we did a VR project that I think it was very groundbreaking with BNP Paribas, where we basically virtualized the whole process in VR. So that's the kind of things that you can do if you know where to go and if you know what you're doing. So yes, you need to think about the world, but yes, if you, like I previously said, if you know your demography and if your demography is here, then go for it. And companies should be aware of that, and they should know exactly what they do and focus on what they do best and go for it.
Great. João Ricardo, you know very well the business market. You are also in charge of the business market in NOS. How do you see from the telecom perspective? I know we are still waiting for 5G, but do you see a huge interest in AR, VR in your clients or in companies in Portugal in general?
Actually, I don't. So I wouldn't say the Portuguese market's a mature market. Actually, I think companies are now paying some attention to this trend and to this movement, but they somehow think this AR VR is for fun or something like nice to have, something just to tick a box and saying, okay, I've already done that. But I really think they are not aware of the potential and the importance of these this trend. So one thing that strikes me is that companies tend to see AR VR as a topic of the future. So something I should consider somewhere down the road in the future. And actually, I think he's wrong because, as Antonio said, I mean, this is not a question of the future. Actually, is quite, I mean, as a present topic, but has begun a long time ago. And I think it's, if I have to say something to the companies, I have to say it's quite urgent to start thinking how important it is to somehow dominate this language of creating content, but with allowing the customers to interact directly with the brands and the companies. And so I have to say, I don't think it's mature. As Antonio and Tiago mentioned, I think we have lots of conditions to prototype and to pilot many solutions. And of course, we don't have the conditions to scale it, but I think the first step is the most important one. So trying to somehow bring the knowledge and the competence that we have, but somehow trying to fit in the business needs is an exercise that has to be done. So companies would be expecting AR VR to be the solution to all the questions they have. So just waiting for the AR VR to increase revenues and to lower costs is not that simple. But if one of the major aspects companies have to face is to interact with the clients, more and more demanding clients, I think in the AR VR domain are many of the responses to those problems. So one of the things we are trying to do is precisely try to bring the corporate gray skeptical world to know that this is not a technology of the future. There's something that is going on right now, and the later they enter in this world, the less advantages they will have in the market. So somehow pressuring and putting some sense of urgency in the decision making.
In the process, yeah. João, what is NOS doing inside the company also to develop, or are you developing AR, VR projects, and what are you proposing to your clients in this area? Do you have any use cases that you are proposing specifically to the clients?
Yeah, actually not precisely to the clients, although we have piloted some solutions for the client, the customers to interact with the EV box. But I would say, it was just an experiment, I would say. We are doing more things on I would say on back office processes. So helping the technicians to have some information on AR layer to help them to interact with different equipments and different specifics on the home networking environment. So how can I put a technician not to be into a 3-month training program and be ready to understand what are the different conditions that he has to dominate in order to fix something in the customer's home. So we have been doing not much, I have to say, but some experiments in that field. I would say that I'm more on trying to find problems in our enterprise clients that can be solved by AR VR. So I'm more on trying to convince our enterprise clients that AR VR is one part of the solution rather than to buy the solutions for the NOS business.
Yeah. Do you think that, I'll now ask Miguel, do you think that there is a separation from the world of B2B solutions and the B2C solutions, because there is a huge potential inside the companies for education, for example, as João was mentioning, and also you were mentioning it, for collaboration, education, to put the technicians inside the job with more information on augmented reality when they look at, I don't know, a piece of an engine, for example.
I'm really aligned with Antonio that people are most of the time not figuring out what's going to happen. I mean, this is not precisely a new dimension, but it's the new layer that will be with us from the time we wake up till we go to sleep again. So, and we'll maybe miss the time and where we only see the true reality, whatever that means. So we'll be seeing the reality mixed with some layers of information we cannot live without. So my answer will be I see many opportunities on the B2B side. So let's say quite deep technical processes that can be helped and supported by AR and VR as well. But I see a lot of importance on the way companies allow their customers to interact through VR or creating an AR layer for all the interaction they have to have with the companies. So yeah. I would say it's
both. Yeah.
Wide the impact that AR VR can have in the economy.
Miguel Paulo, you have mentioned some collaboration on also B2B solutions inside the company. Do you think that this area will strive more fast than the consumer area?
So we're only focused on business to business at Siemens. So we have.
So you'll say it's 100%.
No, it's because the company is focused on that market. I cannot judge on that part. But something I can do say on that behalf is that if you have a solution that will work B2C, and if you make sure that the security is not an aspect, then most of the cases, in terms of usability, user experience, and the feedback, that will also work in a business to business. So unless we go into the very niche specific solutions, which also they are, I mean, we do have currently the company spread out between energy market and renewable energies, industry automation, mobility, and healthcare. So as you can imagine, there will be very specific solutions for each one of these cases and scenarios. But in some other cases, like the one I mentioned with collaboration, I mean, if the companies that were currently evaluation for this quadrant, let's put it this way, they are business to consumer solutions. So of course we have to consider those, because those will be the ones that will have our users most and my colleagues most engaged. And as a huge organization, if you cannot get engagement and people to use the tools, then to be honest, it's really no point on building them. So why have them if people don't use them?
Use it, yeah. Great. Antonio, you've mentioned some cases that you are developing, mostly I think in business to consumer area. What do you think? Do you think there's some more potential, a huge potential on this area, or in the business to business case?
Well, we work in business consumer in gaming, especially in our company that has headquarters in Vancouver. I mean, and right now is getting very strong on esports. I mean, but in Portugal, actually, we have worked mostly business to business. And what we work for instance, with the Jerónimo Martins is miles apart. I mean, we are talking American terms, miles apart of the consumer case, although in the end, it can be translated actually in a consumer application. I see lots of potential in both sides, but I think both sides have to realize that what we have now is a 2D world, a 2D linear world in our screens. And what we are going to do is to move to the 3D world. And we are going to move to the 3D world by unbundling content. iPhone was the first case where you unbundled content from the 2D linear web. But the content was unbundled in 2D. Right now, what it's going to happen is that, first of all, we are going to deal with reality, and reality is 3D. So we have naturally the content unbundled. But then what we are going to do in augmented reality and virtual reality is to learn how to work on a 3D world. And that goes for the consumers and for the companies, and it's a total change. And it's a total change for many different reasons. First is that we create marketplaces out of anything, okay, like the iPhone did. So there will be marketplaces that people don't expect that they are going to come. The other thing is that we are going to create mental models in kids from the beginning that are very different from the ones we learned when we were young. And this means that the impact, for instance, in education is going to be tremendous. People can develop a completely different way of learning and using concepts that right now are foreign to us. And one of the key things, and to finalize, is that years ago I asked someone at Facebook what was the company that they most feared, and they said Snapchat. And they said Snapchat because Snapchat has a natural interface, which is the world. It's an image, okay? And has very simple tools to develop content, okay? And, and I think that is going to be very much like we are going to proceed in the future. The world is going to be our browser, and the world is an image. and everything else, numbers and texts, are going to superimpose to that reality.
Antonio, every time that I mention something like that to someone that is not a technician or does not work in this area, everybody remembers some films like Ready Player One, most recent, but also Minority Report, where you interacted with some kind of screens. I think Minority Report is very far from Ready Player One. Do you really think that our lives will be immersed in this kind of scenario, 3D scenario, with everything, or every screens will be touchable or with a layer of information over it?
Yeah, I mean, that can be done immediately. I don't know if it's totally desirable. What I, you know, and right now for sure we'll not touch the screens. We'll be database interface. We'll not touch anything. But I really think that I really think it's going to be very interesting, because each one of us would play in the game of life, you know. And each one will affect the game of life, and the game of life affects us, you know. So it's going to be like sort of a completely different world. I mean, people associate these with the cyberpunk movement, you know, and Matrix. But I really think that it's going to be a mix of cyberpunk and, you know, and the new science fiction, you know, typology of solarpunk. So I really think that we are going to create a complete using augmented reality and virtual reality and AI, you know, where the reality, you know, and nature is going to be actually much more important than we think that they will.
Yeah, it's sorry, I have some interference here with people coming in. Yeah, it's the difference will be huge, and I think you are right. I was mentioning, Luis was mentioning in the conference that we had before about partnership with a PDC, that we can go to Conímbriga, look at the stones and have all the layers of information over it. And it will be a very different way to learn about history. And I think that new kids that are now used to have all this multimedia world around them and touch world and so on, that they will be more likely to get to know these new things than what they did with the book or just looking at the stones. And the difference is that. But also what I would like you to ask you is that we have now the conditions to transform really the information on this with all these new layers of information over the images or over the reality. What is the trigger? We have now the technical aspects, and we have also the hardware. You were mentioning Apple entering in this AR, VR world. What would be the trigger to really get into it, or are we ready for that? I don't know, Tiago, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think I can comment on that. I've been working, actively on the VR and AR space probably since 2014. But my first experience was, in the early 90s with a Forte VFX1, I think that's the name thing. And I played a game called Dark Forces.
Okay.
It's like Doom, but with a Star Wars IP. And I thought, okay, it's fun, but not really a thing. And then fast forward to 2013, I don't remember, or 13. Yeah, around that. DK1 came out from Oculus. And then I was like, okay, now we have something. And then if we fast forward to when Oculus launches the Quest, that's a really game changer, because finally we had this potential ubiquitous platform in VR that anyone can use completely untethered, and that has decent quality for people to start actually using it from a consumer point of view. Obviously, like we've touched previously in this panel, the money is still in B2B. A lot of money is still in B2B because companies immediately understood the value of things like VR, AR, and XR, because you can easily extrapolate a use case well, the most common ones that everyone usually goes to, like training and simulation, which is way easier to do that on a virtual setting rather than on AFK. So what we have here is a few devices that sort of pushed the development forward of the type of applications that we want to see. Like, for instance, I remember in 2016 when the Vive came out, and I did a lot of pitches to companies with Vive. But at the end of the day, a lot of companies said, yeah, but that's really expensive if I want to create like 20 work points using the Vive, because you need to have a Vive, which was like, I don't know, around, I don't know, mine cost me $1,000 around that when it came out. And then it was, then you need like at least 15 to 800 to $1,800 computer. So you'd still need a lot of money to start. Whereas with a Quest, it's been like what, $400, and you get something that you can carry on and bring anywhere, and it's completely autonomous. I mean, it has battery, but outside that, it's completely autonomous, and you have 6 degrees of freedom. Finally, a wearable, completely mobile, with a decent quality where you can actually create things too. So when I started to pitch with the Quest, I immediately noticed a huge difference on that, because on the VR side, the device has always been and will always be an issue. Even companies that are working on high quality VR, like Varjo in Finland, they're working exclusively for the B2B market, because they have a device that costs like, I don't know, something between 3,000 to 5,000 euros. But when quality is what you're looking for, you don't care about the price point, because you need that. And companies that they work with, from automobile industry to aerospace, they don't care about the money, because they need that, because they immediately see the benefits. So if you look back from the early beginnings, and not just VR, but AR as well, I remember in 2010, Qualcomm released something that we now know as Vuforia. But back then, Qualcomm released this AR toolkit that everyone could use. And it was very groundbreaking, because up until then, you'd need these really ugly squarish markers to trigger rich content in AR. Whereas with Qualcomm, we could now use images, like real images. And I remember pitching things in 2010 using a sort of technology here, and I was pitching to Portuguese companies, and they thought, this guy is stupid. And then in 2014, I was getting hired to do the same things I was pitching in 2010. So you kind of get the feeling that, and it was one of the things that we spoke about on a panel where I was a guest speaker at Public Camera on XR Connects. And one of the things that we were talking about was, most of the time on a corporate world, when we're pitching an idea, most of the most I would say that we spend a lot more time educating our client than actually selling and explaining the technical part of the solution, because people still, a lot of people still don't know why do they need it, and it's a huge mistake to sell a gimmick, because you're just ruining the market. Gimmicks do not do anyone any good. So
they won't take you anywhere.
Exactly. So I think that's it. I just wanted to leave a suggestion. You were talking about movies. There's a great book called The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly. It's old-ish. It's 2016 or 17. But it's a great thing. It's the underline. It's understanding the 12 technological forces that will shape our future. It's a great book.
Great suggestion. Great, thank you. We were talking about devices. We were talking about hardware. I would like you to comment also on content, because I remember when we were talking about 3G and 4G, we were always talking about the killer application that could change everything. And the content is an issue here, because you have, as Tiago mentioned, you have to develop a scenario or an application that fits on the needs of a company that probably does not know that it needs that. How do you think that, Antonio, I will ask you that, do you think the content is nowadays that we have technology, we are going to have great speed on internet with 5G? The content is the great issue for developing the AR, VR things?
No, I really don't. Actually, I really think it's going to be very easy to develop content, much easier to develop content for AR and VR than it is for the web right now. And it's really, really easy with the tools that are being created right now. I think the content is going to be spectacular. And I can give you two examples that we have been dreaming for 20 years. And we hope to implement very soon. One is real-time gaming. You know, we have the patent for a long time to be able to drive a virtual car against a real car in real time. And finally, we'll be able to make it. Okay, and we are working with a major institution to do just that. And the other thing is that I think messaging is going to change completely. And we worked with Claro and Ericsson and the Led Zeppelin in an experience in Brazil. And and I really think messaging, as we know right now, is going to be changed totally. We'll sculpt holograms and we'll send them to someone that will receive in other parts of the world and can do 3D printing and whatsoever, at the blink of an eye. So, and that has lots of implications also for the industries. You know, it's I see real-time gaming because I come from that area, but I see very much the messaging is going to change totally. You know, the possibilities with messaging are still unthinkable.
Yeah. Great. Two very, very interesting use cases that can change a lot, really. João Ricardo, do you want to mention also some areas? You've mentioned also tourism. We can talk about state, I don't know how to say it well, but selling houses, for example, or something.
Real estate.
Real estate, yes.
I mean, those examples are quite straightforward. What I would say is that anything that relies on websites today will need some sort of interaction, because the things that, and again, Antonio, I think mentioned this, I mean, makes no sense for us to have a rectangle like this one to interact with the world. I mean, this won't happen in the near future. So the things that we are replacing these artificial device that we use and we carry all day long with something that is much more natural. And so it's the no interface will come. So people will interact with others and with companies with gestures and voice. And then, so the potential of this is all over. Of course, there will be some. I mean, the first use cases will be, yes, I wanna see the hotel before I'll go there, and no longer I need the photos of the room. I need to experience somehow the hotel before I go there. So the same thing you mentioned in real estate. I want to see the house and to see by myself. So I need to look into every single corner and so on. Okay, but I'm not saying those are the cases that will generate more value. So I really believe that is just a hint. Everything that is relying today in a website will be changed into a different language, and I think it was Tiago that mentioned we can foresee the first 2 or 3 steps, but the thing is, this is really has the potential of disrupting many of the ways we are used to live and interact with the information around. And so I'm not the experts to see the 4th and the 5th step, but I really believe this has the potential of disrupting the way we interact with information, and therefore the way we interact with the companies. And so that's where I think there's the money to be made, so the value to create, because companies are not pretty much aware of the potential of these of the AR and VR.
Great, thank you so much. We have a question from the audience. There's someone asking if any of the speakers' companies are actively looking to invest or to partner with AR VR startups. If you want to comment on that, you can.
Man, it's quite simple. I say yes. So we need partners because we are not the one who create content and so deal directly with the technology. So we need partners to create solutions for our enterprise clients, and specifically on actively looking to invest. The things that NOS has created a fund, so in the beginning of the year, so devoted to investing in companies that generate solutions that could be supported by 5G. So as I mentioned, we believe AR VR is one of the trends that will benefit the most from 5G, and therefore, yes, it's a public fund, so it's anyone can apply to be invested by this fund. So the answer is double yes. Actually, it's why we believe we can create value to our clients by creating a network of relations. So we believe in networks, which is something a telco is supposed to say. So we believe in working jointly with different stakeholders to deliver the final value to consumers and to the companies.
Great, thank you. We are running out of time.
Same from my side. Double yes as well. I mean, we do have a venture capital, Next 47, focused and heavily investing. Just today was disclosed that we actually bought Visendo. It's a virtual training Swedish platform. And I mean, Tiago also mentioned Varjo. So we have a stake on Varjo. So we're actively looking into the market. Some niches more than others, of course, like mentioned. So yeah, just wanted to say that as well from my side.
Antonio, do you want to comment on that also? I'm sorry.
Well, we built our own ecosystem in Portugal, and we are part of an ecosystem in Vancouver, which is one of the largest in the world. Right now, we are not actively investing in anyone except for ourselves. But of course, we will be glad to partner with companies that can complement us. No one does everything.
Right. Well, we are now running out of time. We had this schedule until for 6 minutes, and so I will ask everyone to comment for a last round on a very short comment on how do you see that we can be in 3 to 5 years. I will start with Tiago, that wasn't in this last round. He has already mentioned some of the big things that we can see, but please.
Oh, yeah, that's an easy question, right?
Right. 3 to 5 years is very easy.
So 3 to 5 years, yeah, fairly easy. Well, in this area, mobility is key. So more and more XR will have a presence on our everyday life with a strong mobility component. So we won't be stuck to our desks or to some contraptions that we use currently to navigate on virtual worlds. No, we will be using more and more ergonomic devices and more wearables. And the whole concept will probably change, as we know right now, because we are very tied to the technology right now, to the technology that we know. And based on that, we are creating projects for 2 or 3 years based on something that we know, that we've known for the past 2. So we need to shift that. There needs to be a paradigm shift. So I strongly believe that things will be different and more immersive. If I had to summarize in one sentence, that would be
right. Antonio, in
Well,
a short tweet.
Well, I really think that the changes are going to be dramatic. I think mobility is a very important part of it, because what I really think it will happen is that the economy will change completely in the next few years, and hyperlocal development will be the key, not the global economy. So I really think that it's very interesting, because Peter Kropotkin, who was a anarchist and wrote Mutual Aid and Memories of a Revolutionist, was totally right. I think the future is the community, and that future is possible because of AR and VR. Strangely enough.
Yeah, great. Miguel?
So I don't want to be overly optimistic, but I do think that we're going to see definitely some of the quadrants of the area, for example, like training or maintenance and simulation, that will be definitely mainstreams nowadays. So they are for the past some years, and those are the front runners in terms of AR and VR. And I could see this applicable in mainstream ways to different industries, like said, for example, in building and construction. The same and likewise for maintenance into the energy sector. I do have some projects going on, and we do have several projects going on into the oil and gas segment and renewable energies, and the same for health. So I do believe that it will be fairly common that once, so this is already changing, by the way, but perhaps like one of the few positive outputs of the pandemic would be that we could see a major growth into the health sector, and seeing stuff like remote assistance between health professionals with augmented reality interacting with the real world. So, and here I can quickly think about, for example, disinfecting a wound and having a professional that doesn't need to be that specific one professional, 20 people waiting to get a consultation with that doctor, but another professional that would be able to deliver the same value. I also see a very big growing into the marketing segment. So I do believe that will be several Pokemon Go type of events happening in other parts of industries. And this will definitely determine, and hopefully, the death of the long-lived PDF, so that we all don't need to read 20 pages when we, I don't know, unbox our new vacuum cleaner, or to follow basic instructions. I want to I think it will be fairly possible in the next 3 to 5 years to cook a dish and have following the recipe telling us exactly what is the visual ingredient that we need to pick, and we don't go and search for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Great.
too overly optimistic. Yeah. The time will tell. I would say.
I like the ideas that you have. I liked it, João.
Actually, I think we tend to overestimate the evolution in the short term and to underestimate in the long term. So I would expect an exponential growth, meaning that we'll not see everything in the next 3 years. So I'll be glad to see at least the first steps to be taken. Let's say the least sexy things like training highly skilled technicians, and so substitute highly paid technicians with a remote operation. So from aviation to health to many other aspects. So I'll be glad if in 3 years down the road we could see at least the first signs of the path, believing that this is an exponential evolution. Therefore, in 5 to 10 years down the road, I can tell.
Right. Thank you so much, everybody. It was such a pleasure to be chatting with you. I could be talking for more and more because there are some aspects that I personally I'm concerned about, because we see all this evolution, but I'm a little bit afraid that there will be a huge gap and a broader gap between the ones that have and the ones that have not, because we see it already in computers and smartphones. And I hope we can, we will not have it in the future devices or future technologies that we have, or will be having a more digital divide, as they call it. And personally, that's a thing that I'm afraid of with this new technology. And of course, we have seen some such great evolutions. So we should now be all in a stage, seated next by each other, and we are in our homes or offices. And with these virtual reality things that don't work that well, because I have like a helmet with this screen behind me. But we've evolved so much in the last 20 years, and we have to believe that in the next years we'll reach to a better place. And so thank you so much. We'll have a concert following us. So Paulo Bucho will pleasure us with a virtual reality concert, and it will be great. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone that was listening to us. See you soon. Okay. In reality or not.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you so much.
See you.
Bye.